Hello, everyone. This is the January 12th Jupyter IPython dev meeting. We'll go ahead and get started. Let's see on the agenda. I think I'm listed first. So I'll go ahead. We had some good discussions about logo and trademark issues that led to opening a couple of issues on the design and governance repos. Mostly it's the same kind of issues that other projects have dealt with. You may have seen a while back, Python had some problems in the UK because a company tried to trademark the word Python. Somebody has a lot of echo in the back. Because Jason, you might want to mute your mic until it's okay. Thanks. Because someone tried to trademark the word Python, and the basic issue is that basically with logos and copyright, you have to protect your own copyrights from what's called dilution or confusion. And if you don't, then it becomes very difficult to enforce it later from an actual hostile. If a hostile user is actually trying to abuse it, then you can't defend it from a hostile use if you didn't enforce it relatively aggressively early on. And so, what is that? Okay. What is that? Do you know what that is? Is that related to us?
I don't know. I subscribe to see news when there is news, but I don't know what this is.
Okay, great. Yeah, well.
I'm not seeing anything. Sorry. Is there something?
Oh, yeah. Matthias put in the agenda a jupyternow.quickmvp.com URL. That is a mysterious sign up for news. That is a mysterious sign up for news page and doesn't really say what it is. But the name Jupyter spelled like that is really, really us. I mean, I made very sure when we had that discussion that that name didn't exist anywhere else before. So we'll have to look into that. But basically, it means that we really have to have clear guidelines, even for friendly projects that are affiliated with us or that we want to support their usage of images, logos, and the name of the project, and we want them to be able to indicate that they collaborate with us and that they're affiliated with us, that they don't actually use the logo in a way that can be potentially considered a dilution or a confusion of our trademark. So when you interact with other projects, you may want to that are related to us, you may want to communicate that fact. Other than that, we were able to fix up a little problem that was reported with fault handler is something new in Python that allows you to catch seg faults. Seg fault crashes, and it turns out that when working on a remote 0MQ kernel, we didn't actually support it, so that's been fixed now. And the 288 IPyWidgets discussion is still ongoing, and it would be good for if Brian was here, so we could talk about that, but we'll continue that on the PR. And otherwise, I've had family, and I've been working on the hiring and interviewing for the positions that are open, so progress on that. And hopefully in a few weeks, we'll have results to report and new members on the team. That's it. Thomas, you're next.
Okay, so as many of you probably saw, we got an abstract in for the LPUB 2016 Electronic Publishing Conference, which is in Germany in the summer. If that's successful, then probably either Min or I will be going to that conference to present the poster. So thanks everyone who helped out with that, and thanks everyone for getting me your information promptly so I could build a great big long list of authors. And for everybody listening who didn't get onto the explicit author list, we've also put the Jupyter development team as the last author, so everybody's kind of included by that. I've been doing some work on Jupyter Console, and I think we should try to put a 4.1 release out of that because there's some, well, in particular one fairly egregious bug where it was looking in the IPython directories for config rather than the Jupyter directories, which has been fixed in master. And I've been working on adapting IPython to use Prompt Toolkit for the terminal interface, which is basically all going swimmingly.
Cool. Matthias, you're next.
Yeah, I'm next. So, hey, I'm back in Berkeley since like less than 24 hours. So I'm roughly scheduled middle of Atlantic right now. So Notebook 4.2 is out. You can use it after a long debate of a few weeks. You can now install it and have a lot of fancy new features. And we have the blog post.
You mean Notebook 4.1?
Yep, sorry, I mean 4.1, sorry. I heard, it because I'm in the middle of the Atlantic. Yeah, so read the blog post with all the new features, try it, make bug reports. We'll try to do 4.2 soon. Thomas asked for 4.1 on Jupyter Console. I would like to push also a bit on releasing a new minor version of IPython, which has a few bug fixes that are required for users. Also, NBConvert has a PR that I've been waiting for over 2 months now, so I would like some reviews. Also, I'm back in Berkeley. I will be searching a lot for a place to stay, so I might not be a lot available during the week. And that's about it. Next is Steven, if you're connected.
Yes. I'm here. All right, so I've been working recently on all the Jupyter JS repos, iterating a lot on those, making releases on NPM, and combining them into the Jupyter JS plugins repo, which is basically the new front end for the Jupyter lab. That's where the JS code will reside that puts everything together. We've got a functioning demo there. Jason and I are in the process of adding a somewhat functional notebook renderer there and execution. He'll talk about that. But the file browser, the terminal, and the editor are all there and somewhat interacting. So we're in the process of adding the interaction features there. And also the command palette is in there and working. They're going to talk more about the command palette. So we're pushing toward having the Jupyter lab integrated and functioning as a separate page and the notebook master or some branch on the notebook, just to show the possibility by the end of this month. That's where we're at.
Hi, I think I'm next. So in the last week, I've been working on the command palette, and none of the things in it now are mockups anymore. They're all actual commands that are registered coming out of the registry. They support being enabled and disabled. They support search, and now the most recent thing I was working on is making the command palette itself subclassable in case somebody wants a radically different thing that can't just be solved with CSS theming. And I think I've got it to the state I want to start adding new features. The next feature to add to it is keyboard interaction. And once that's in, I think it'll be feature complete. So I'll be moving on to something else. Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, I think it's me next. So I've been working on the Phosphor key map. So we wanted a single place in Phosphor and Phosphor where you can register a key mapping and have the menus and the command palette and any other custom will just pick it up. So that's now working. We should be in the next day or two. And then the rest of the week will just be updating the examples, making sure all of the Jupyter Lab demos are actually using it, and then moving on to tidying up, as Steve said, for this notice of end of month. Hopefully get the demo working on main Jupyter Lab. That's it for me. Nick?
Thanks. Sounds like cool stuff. So I just got back from Austin, doing my first thing as a Continuum real person out there. Lots of cool energy there and pushing the notebook out into a lot of new places. It's really the centerpiece of a lot of the work that we're doing there, which is great. I am starting to get fired up on the PR that Matthias mentioned on the external exporters. I want that real bad for NB Present because it would kind of validate some of the choices that I made there, which would be great. related to some of the other things, looking at the work of NBDime and NBDiff, and I'm sorry about the notification dings. I turned that on Hackpad by accident. And what it would mean to move some of the diff machinery into the browser, so that you could look at, actual overlaid diffs of images, bokeh canvases, see differences in table cells. I don't know. It might be crazy and not possible, but I would love to see something that really lets you see the history and provenance of a notebook better. After many sessions working with people on getting NBViewer running, I think we really need to do a better job of documenting. Do you want an NBViewer? Do you really want an NBViewer? And I think a lot of the answer a lot of times is going to be you want an NBViewer that is already integrated into your Django or Flask or whatever thing, that makes it, already takes care of some of the auth questions, like you won't be able to run it on the same port. So we got to figure out something to do that. But the first place to go with that is probably some doc right up the top of NBViewer that says, probably you don't need NBViewer unless you need to serve the internet's entire amount of notebooks. There's probably some better way, and we need to iterate on that. So checking out the landscape of what other people are doing to serve notebooks, and just in a basic way before we get to deployable apps and all that, just how do you handle the Wild West of JavaScript? So any feedback there would be fantastic. That is all.
Okay, I think I'm up next. So last week I worked a little bit on NBGrader. Brian gave me some feedback about the setup.py. He was having trouble using it because NBGrader actually used a tool called Flit by Thomas. And this gave some good feedback to Thomas so he can improve Flit. For now, we're going to take it out. Maybe when we get those little niches fixed with Flit, we can put Flit back into the setup.py of NBGrader. I also opened another PR for the Notebook web server, investigating and trying to address the issue of output flooding and notebook crashes. Specifically, this was for Brian and the class that he's teaching this quarter. It's really easy for students to crash their notebook. So I set about trying to find the simplest, most minimalistic way to address that. And I think limiting the messages from the web server on the WebSocket to the front end is a good way to do that. And Min already has a PR like this open, so this is just a variation on that. Originally, I wasn't actually going to open a PR for this. I was just going to do this in a branch and let Brian use it for a while, but he said to go ahead and open a PR so we could talk about what I've done. And lastly, I opened a PR for IPyWidgets, which validates front-end and back-end versions. I think this will help a lot with installation problems that we've been seeing that users have because of the complex nature of IPyWidgets and deploying the JavaScript with the Python and everything that goes along with that. So what this actually does is it does a bidirectional check. It verifies that the front end is matched with the backend version that it expects and vice versa. And then it will be kind of verbose about it and tell you both in the backend if you're missing a widget front end and in the front end that you're missing the right widget backend if you are. And this is also in preparation of splitting IPyWidgets JavaScript out of the Python IPyWidgets repository. This should help us know whether or not we do that successfully. And yeah, that's it for me. Sylvan, I think you're up.
John. John?
Yeah.
Did you see William's message about what he does in SageMath Cloud for limiting?
No. Did he post that in the PR or on the mailing list?
It was on the mailing list, but it was in
I pinged him in the PR too.
Right. It was also directly to you. basically what he does is he limits both the number of messages and also the sizes of different kinds of messages. And because you might have a MathJax, a message, an HTML message that contains MathJax might consume a huge amount of resources on the client. An equivalent amount of text might not. And anyway.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm kind of doing the same thing, and I did see that message. I know which one you're talking. He sent that like immediately after, right?
Right.
Yeah. So right now I'm limiting. I give the option to limit both the message count and the message size, but I don't have any kind of way to allow you to like discern between what kind of messages. It's just IOPub messages.
Yeah.
And so yeah, data size, the data rate of IOPub messages, and the number of IOPub messages.
I guess it's my turn. So this week I mostly worked on IPyWidgets. I opened many PRs on IPyWidgets. The first ones, the big ones, were about specifying default values for widgets from the JavaScript side so that you can instantiate them and use them in a meaningful fashion without having a backend. For example, if you instantiate a slider, you don't want like to have to specify the default values for 0 and 100 for min and max, or request it from the backend. There is also another work in progress on using Webpack rather than Browserify for the web examples of embedding widgets into other web pages. There is an open PR that is an API change regarding the interact for abbreviations in the interact API. I'm going to post something on the mailing list later today, asking some feedback about this. There's been a number of other bug corrections and changes in the API for styling widgets and especially for layouts. So all these got merged. They were rather minor. And yeah, also worked a bit on documentation.
Okay, I think I'm next. So as I mentioned earlier, ticket sales for Jupyter Day, Chicago should start today. And I'll share the links out for that on the Gitter and Twitter and the Itters. Didn't do much last week because I was out at a conference, but I did help out Carol with some documentation stuff. I also posted a comment on the issue that Fernando mentioned earlier about deprecating the old nbviewer.ipython. Figured out how to do the switchover, and the comment on that is in the link on the hackpad. I was thinking maybe send an email out to the mailing list and tell people that nbviewer will be in like maintenance mode around 11 p.m. CST Friday night, which is when there's the least amount of traffic on it from what I've looked at in the logs. So basically just doing that. Also, like a PSA to the world, we do have the nbviewer.org domain, which redirects to jupyter.nbviewer now, but we might want to encourage people to, when they're like linking to their notebooks, use that instead. Just so, I mean, it's like less characters and it redirects to the right place and all that good stuff.
Well, the problem is, as long as we make it a redirect, it's hard for people to use that, because what people do is they go there, they get the final URL and they copy and paste, and if the final URL has been redirected, so we'd have to stop doing the redirect if we wanted to do that.
Yeah,
we can think about that. We can think about that, but people basically will copy and paste whatever is in their URL bar.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to. It might just be like in the actual nbviewer interface, you have the chance to like copy a link, sort of like a bit-esque thing. And finally, there is a work in progress pull request that I'm working on to add the last modified date and to allow sorting by the last modified date on the notebook file tree. Currently, we're having some discussions around what the UX for that would look like. Different people have different opinions about how the date should be displayed. So if you want to pitch in your idea before I finally code something up, the link to that PR is in the hackpad. And that is pretty much it for me this week. I think Jason is next.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Nope.
There we are. Can you hear me now? So basically, I've been working a lot with Steve and Chris this week on the Phosphor notebook stuff and getting a notebook renderer up and using that to review some of the work that they've been doing as well and provide feedback. I put some instructions in the hackpad for getting an initial, the initial viewer for notebooks up and running. And we're working hard on getting that into the plugins repo so that it'll be part of the initial lab demo.
Okay, I guess I'm next. Been working on a few things, various Jupyter Hub related things. Brian had some feedback due to some failed user creation that he encountered, so there's some better error handling things and PRs on Jupyter Hub, and then also working with Carol on some documentation related stuff on Jupyter Hub, and then there are also some background conversations about Jupyter Hub security related things, about what's in scope to solve with Jupyter Hub and what's not, and how best to communicate that. I spent much of the last day or so fighting with Windows to get a release of PyZMQ, which fixes some stuff that Thomas helped narrow down to a bug in libzmq, and now there's a workaround in PyZMQ around that bug for sending messages larger than a few gigabytes. And I've been chugging along working on NBDime stuff with Martin here at Simula, which is going pretty well. We're now playing a bit with mocking up putting a diff on a web page so that we can have kind of the full flow of viewing a diff. We were mostly solid on computing diffs, but now we're working on how to put that on a page so that you can actually view the diff, and using CodeMirror's diff plugin, diff and merge plugins for rendering diffs of the input areas, and then we will hand off to the more design and UI oriented folks for polishing things like getting things like image diffs, which, right, so as Nick talked about, that all the UI for rendering a diff is going to be HTML, JavaScript stuff. It's just the computing the diff is going to be on the server side essentially, and then send it over, and then it'll render it however you want. And then the last thing is I will finally for Sylvan, I'll finally get a Traitlets release out there this week. It should be ready. I should have gotten it out a while ago, but we had various notebook related things to get to first. But we should be able to get Traitlets out this week with the new API that everybody's worked so hard to put together. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, this is Damian. Very short for me. Essentially, last week I was mostly full-time involved with the latest Boca release, so not too much Jupyter. But in the last release, we are using the comms infrastructure to trigger updates, so that's better than before, and that's makes really interesting to work with Bokeh plots and notebooks. I have also done a little bit of MV extension related work, and I am thinking and working and talking a lot with Nick about a lot of Jupyter things. That's all for me.
Okay, I guess it's me. I've been continuing to work on a bunch of documentation stuff across all the different repos. Some of the highlights were we got IPyWidgets on Read the Docs now, and Jupyter Hub is very close to that, using Markdown as the source. And I think I would like to keep Markdown as the source, as Min and I talked about before, on that particular repo, because I think it'll be a good test bed for seeing what other ways we can do documentation. Right now, the conversion from Notebook to restructured text or even Notebook to Markdown is not as clean as I would like it to be. So as things move with NB-Convert and some of the other projects out there, hopefully that will improve. I did some testing with the...
Quick question, Carol, because I haven't looked at the code. Is this using a Sphinx plugin for Markdown input, or are you running it through Pandoc?
It is using... Read the Docs took over maintaining ReCommonMark, which is using CommonMark as a Python. So it basically is you add one line of code and it will convert it. What it's using underneath, I'd have to go and look, but it seems to do a better job than some of the other options that we had.
Okay, yeah, so it's using the CommonMark implementation, the CommonMark converter, I guess.
Yeah, Read the Docs has taken over maintenance of the Python CommonMark implementation.
Okay.
Right.
Specifically for this. So it's about as official as it gets.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And so I played around a little with the Conda and YAMLs, and it'll be nice once it works. There's still some issues with it about Sphinx not being at the right version, and when you re-push the docs, it's not updating quite properly. So it's still not ready for production use, but it's got promise. Bunch of outreach, and welcome, Anna.
Yes, welcome.
All right. Is it my turn? It looks like, maybe. So I just came into the room. I just got into the office, but over the past week, I've been mainly working on the Jupyter Workbench stuff. That's been my primary focus. Make sure we do that right. Talk with Brian back and forth on that. And I also did some side work for Cal Poly Data Science and took time to make them a logo, make them a corresponding logo in different sizes, and some marketing material that they can use going outward to other clients. But that was about it for last week. And I'm just continuing to, any PRs that you ping me on, I'll reply to, do some designs for you, and continue on the Workbench. That's me.
I'm muted, sorry.
If you're here, you're the next on the...
So now we Anna Ruvalcaba, who's our new member of the team, and Brian is not here to welcome her, so I would at least like to introduce her, but let her speak for herself. She was just very recently hired at Cal Poly, and she will be working on the project from now on. So it's fantastic to have you on, and I'll let you go ahead, but we're delighted to have you working on the project from now on. And please go ahead, Anna, and we're really happy to have you.
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Ruvalcaba, and actually yesterday was my first day, so yes, very recent. I am the new operations specialist for Project Jupyter, and I'll be working on marketing, events, and operations for the team. So I am just a quick minute about me. I am a Cal Poly graduate. I graduated in 2002 with a business degree focusing in marketing. And I've lived in Santa Barbara, New York. I've focused my marketing and events career in software companies. So the bulk of it being at Citrix. I actually spent 7 years there. So I'm excited to be working in the software world again and to be back at Cal Poly.
Well, great having you here. And one of the first things that I think now that we have Anna on the team, we'll try to get back in gear is trying to plan a dev meeting for the spring. So we don't have exact dates or anything, but if people can begin thinking in their calendars, and we can begin discussing it later off the meeting, what would be a good day to try to have a dev meeting, because we're way behind on having a face-to-face meeting. The team has grown a lot. We'll probably have to think of the logistics a little bit differently from past dev meetings, because we can't quite organize it exactly in the same way as we had before. It's just too many people. But Anna is an expert at the matter, and she'll be able to help us make sure that we don't drop the ball. So wonderful to have you, Anna.
Thank you.
Dan, are you on? What's that?
Everybody come on down to Florida.
Probably easier to fly you somewhere else.
Yeah, Fernando, this is Dan. I guess I'm up next.
Cool. Yes.
So first of all, Happy New Year, everybody. I apologize. I was out of sync for most of December, doing a lot of worldwide travel for business. Back into things. Just a little bit of an update. My team's been working with Brian and Leah around PyData. We are doing some planning for PyData Carolinas, somewhat targeted towards the early fall time frame. So that's underway to be hosted in North Carolina. The other thing is I mentioned out on the HackPad, but I think Jason and I are kind of noodling back and forth. When we met with the team back in New York, some of our discussions with Phosphorus, we were ready to do some testing when based on the roadmap when Phosphor integration with the first builds of Jupyter would happen. So it sounds like that's we're not there yet, but it's to be it's coming, and when Jason's ready, our team will start banging on that.
Yeah, it seems like just above in Jason's section, there's already some actual instructions. So you might want to start banging on those and hitting on Jason to see how it goes.
Well, my big project for today is to try to get execution working with the plugin repo. And Steve and I have been working together on getting it to actually open IPython files instead of just use a random test file. So you're welcome to take a look at it there. Things are moving pretty rapidly in the next few days, and I hope that the viewer at least will be in our initial thing going out this end of this month, and that things will pretty rapidly go forward from there. One thing, I guess, going forward, Fernando and Matthias and whoever else wanted, we should have some serious conversations about how we want the data to flow in the application and how we want application state stored and things like that. So maybe we should set up a meeting later this week offline from here about those sorts of things, because that'll impact how we do stuff in the model layer instead of the view layer.
Okay, that's good.
As a reminder, I mean, what we're going to try to do is make sure some of our incubation work, those widgets that we've been working on, can actually work in that environment. So that's kind of the testing we want to go. Yeah, we remember that, Jason. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else who's at the meeting who didn't write down anything on the agenda, who might want to chime in before we stop the recording, or anybody who remembered something along the way? All right. In that case, I'll stop the recording. Thanks, everyone. Bye.